Now, Barcelona have always had great players, but their real period of success didn't come until the mid 2000s into the 2010s as well, where they really started to rack up those league titles and rack up those Champions Leagues as well. That's when they became really successful. They'd only had one European Cup before that, which I believe was in 1992. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. Now, obviously, under Frank Rijkaard, he was the manager when Celtic knocked them out and got to UEFA Cup final in 2003. He was also the manager that oversaw their second Champions League win with players like Ronaldinho, Juli, and Samuel Eto'o as well. A really exciting front three. And then your Xavi and Iniesta, they were coming through at that point, finally coming to fruition. And then things went a little bit sour for whatever reason, and Pep Guardiola came in. He obviously did some great work in the La Masia, which is what the Barcelona youth team is called. And he came in and revolutionised them. Now, Guardiola was a student of the game under Johan Cruyff, who arguably is probably the biggest genius in terms of football. He was so ahead of his time. I mean, obviously, you're talking about a player that was playing in the 60s and 70s and also was a manager at Barcelona during a successful period. And he really knew, he really was years beyond his age. People talk all about Guardiola, but there's no Guardiola if there's not Johan Cruyff. So under Guardiola, they were obviously hugely successful. They won the league many times, and they were excellent in the Champions League, pretty much formidable. And Ronaldinho's time came to an end, and I felt that was the right call. I felt that, seems to be quite a common feature with some of the South American players. He had a little bit of a weight gain, and he was moved on to AC Milan, and he didn't really do too much there. And of course, there was arguably the greatest player of all time coming through the youth team, Messi. And obviously, Messi is still carrying him to this day. I'm gonna go into that a little bit more in a second. But Barcelona, obviously, they had their identity back. The Barcelona way, which obviously was brought to the club by Johan Cruyff, and obviously Ajax. That all comes from Ajax as well. Cruyff learned under his manager was either Ajax or Holland, and then he brought that to Barcelona, and Guardiola has obviously brought that to Bayern Munich and to Manchester City. Now, Guardiola won his last Champions League at Barcelona. Barcelona have won a Champions League since then. They won one under Luis Enrique, who also won a league title. But ever since Guardiola has left the club, they seem to have been a club that have had a bit of an identity crisis. Now, they managed to obviously, under having Messi, because obviously he was a world class and one of the greatest players of all time, they've obviously still been hugely successful. And they had Xavi and Iniesta as well, who, two of the best midfielders on the planet. They didn't just dominate with Barcelona, they dominated with Spain. Spain winning the Euros, the World Cup, and then the Euros once again, which was an incredible achievement, it has to be said. I believe they won the Euro 2008, World Cup 2010, and Euro 2012. Now, if I'm wrong about that, no, I must be right, because Italy was 2006. Yeah, I believe that is the case. So they were there at that point, and Barcelona obviously were still very formidable in the Champions League, very formidable in the league, but they obviously weren't winning it as much as they would like. And they've had a few managers since then, and unfortunately there was the manager that passed away through cancer, unfortunately. And they've obviously had many other managers in between as well. And then Valverde's been brought in. Well, obviously he's been sacked now, but he's ever since he came in, pretty much, or even maybe not since he's come in, but since the last 18 months, all we have heard is that Valverde's going to be sacked. Valverde's going to be sacked. I mean, and how disrespectful is it? And you've got to give full credit to the guy, because he was nothing but professional the whole time. He was winning league titles. Yes, they had the complete collapse against Roma, and they had the collapse against Liverpool last season as well, where they were the Roma game, I can't remember exactly, but they were against Liverpool. They beat them 3-0 at the Camp Nou and then lost 4-0 at Anfield. Maybe it was 5 in the end. But anyway, Liverpool obviously put them out, and then Roma put them out the year before, and it was a debacle. I think they beat Roma 4-1 at the Camp Nou the year before that, and Roma beat them 3-0 at the Olimpico. I could be wrong about that. I'm not 100% sure, but he leaves the club, and okay, they've lost to Atletico Madrid in the Supercopa, which has now been changed. It's not just one match. It's like a semi-final. So the league winner and the cup finalists and the team that finishes second, I think. I can't remember exactly. But the point is, they're a club. They're a club in complete disarray. Barcelona. Apparently, they approached Thierry Henry in September. Now, there was no doubt Thierry Henry was a world class player in his day, but if you listen to his punditry on Sky Sports, he doesn't really seem to know that much about football. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but I've seen it before with footballers where they're on the TV, and you just think, what are you talking about? And you know, if there was any kind of proof needed that he was not going to be fit for the Barcelona job, you only have to look at the job he did at Monaco. They sat Jardine, they brought Henry in, he did awful, and they brought Jardine back. I mean, that just says it all for me, really. They also scrapped the La Masia a couple of years ago. I mean, they've obviously had issues in the boardroom, which obviously you can say for quite a few clubs. But they're a club of complete identity crisis, and it looked like they were actually going to possibly get back on track. Now, I think Valverde was treated absolutely disgracefully. I mean, but I never ever heard him kind of complain or moan about the situation. He just got on with the job. He never kind of bowed to this speculation. And you know, they're top of the league, are in the last 16 of the Champions League. Would they win the Champions League this season? We don't know. I mean, certainly if they were to have another collapse and Valverde was still in charge, then yeah, you could definitely say. But it looked like they were going to hire Xavi on Sunday. And this just shows where Barcelona are at as a club, because he turned them down. A club legend, one of the biggest legends of the club, turned them down. A club legend and a captain when he was there. Now, he's obviously done it. He's obviously doing a pretty good job in the team he's with in Saudi Arabia, but he's obviously not liked what he's heard. He's obviously not impressed with the direction the club's going in, or he's not got enough control. Xavi, obviously, like Guardiola with Cruyff, is from the Guardiola school of football, and if Barcelona want to go back to that, he would have been the perfect man to try and implement that. I mean, we've seen it obviously with Mikel Arteta. At Arsenal in the early stage, you know, there is progress there. I mean, obviously it's going to take a while. You know, they need a pre-season, and they need to obviously get a few players in. But you know, the early signs are good. They were very good against Manchester United, and the job that Gerrard's done at Rangers, you know, he's done an excellent job, and Lampard's done a solid job at Chelsea. So, you know, it would have been worth giving Xavi a go. But I find it laughable they were going to bring in Henry. I mean, he just doesn't seem to really have it in management. So they've obviously hired someone else. I can't remember his name. I looked at his name. I can't remember. And he's got very little top flight experience. I mean, what his they say about him is that it's like the lower league Barcelona that plays the Barcelona way. But Barcelona, they've scrapped their La Masia. They've got presidential elections in 2021. It feels strange talking about a club that's top of La Liga in the last 16 of the Champions League and saying that they're a club in disarray, but they are. They have been for the past 4 or 5 seasons. When Luis Enrique was in charge and when he left, they just seemed to be a club that just from the kind of the kind of top. As I say, Valverde, I think, was doing a solid enough job. Okay, the Champions League exits were not great, but you know, they're far and above the best team in Spain. Yes, they're top over Real Madrid in goal difference, but I would have certainly backed them to win the league this season against Zidane, who I'm not going to speak on, but. They're just a club in disarray. They've got a real identity crisis. They obviously had the kind of the Barcelona way. I think quite simply, the problem is that they're obviously very good going forward, but I think in the defensive phase they're leaving a lot to be desired. And a lot of people don't realise with Pep Guardiola, that's actually one of the most important things of the style of play he likes to play is that they actually work on the defensive phase, although obviously we see some of the results Man City have had this season. But I mean, obviously the guy's a genius, so let's kind of call a spade a spade. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. I mean, I'd probably expect Xavi to be appointed sooner rather than later. Certainly not this season or next season, but you know, if after those club elections in 2021, when maybe he's got a clear idea where the club's going, I would imagine that he would jump at the chance to go there eventually. I suppose Barcelona have just got to see how this new manager does, but they almost seem to be like trying to be like Real Madrid. I remember when they got a sponsorship and it was a charity one, and I thought, well, kind of fair enough. And then they got Qatar Airways, so they went from, because Barcelona's always been a bit of a club of the people. The opposite to Real Madrid. Real Madrid being the Galacticos. And Barcelona have tried to be the Galacticos. They made several high-priced signings that haven't worked out. Ousmane Dembele, they brought him in for a high fee. Hasn't worked out. He's been constantly linked with going to clubs. Liverpool seem to be the favourites. Philippe Coutinho, he was absolutely desperate to go to Barcelona, and it's been an absolute disaster. I mean, I didn't really see how he was going to work out there anyway. Griezmann's obviously joined, and I'm not really convinced he's going to be that much of a success there. And Malcolm, well, I mean, I felt that was daft on his part. Although Barcelona is a huge club, I felt that he should have really gone to Roma, tried to ply his trade, and then if he did well at Roma, then go to Barcelona. He went there too soon, and it's going to be very difficult for his career. And you know what, Messi's getting up there now. I mean, he's 32, 33 years old now, and when Messi's not playing, Barcelona look ordinary. That's the truth. I know that sounds ridiculous, but they look ordinary. And I think when he calls it a day, I mean, they've got that Fatih player who looks a real talent. I mean, he's not Messi talent, but I mean, it's a glimmer of hope. If they can maybe go back to basics, go back to the kind of La Masia, or even sign from the level, these high-profile signings have not worked out for the club. And historically, Barcelona, they never really seem to have worked out. They've obviously made clever signs in the past, like when they signed Larson, they signed Belletti, they signed Henry. Players that maybe were coming towards, not with Belletti, but with Larson and Henry coming towards the end of their career, and they could offer something. But they also swapped Samuel Eto'o, and then Zlatan Ibrahimovic is a world-class player, but they swapped him for Samuel Eto'o. And Samuel Eto'o won the Champions League of Inter the next season, and Zlatan Ibrahimovic has never won the Champions League. That's not a knock on Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but Eto'o seemed to suit the style of play better, and Pep Guardiola never took to Zlatan Ibrahimovic. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Barcelona. Sorry it was a little bit long-winded, but trying to do a lot of it from memory. I hope you liked it anyway, and we'll probably be back for Rangers and Stranraer on Friday, which I think will be a pretty foregone conclusion.